Hey, my name is Kayla Gibbs. I'm here with Khatib Ritter. Just going to ask a couple questions on network marketing. So, Khatib, how did you get started in network marketing?
Well, the way I got started in network marketing was kind of funny. My grandmother used to be in a company called Mary Kay, and I used to see what she did all the time, and I didn't want to work at McDonald's as a young kid. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to wear a suit and tie, to work. So I asked her about the network marketing industry. Obviously, I didn't want to do Mary Kay. So she said, well, look into classified ads and see if there's something else that you might want to do. I didn't know the company that I looked at was a network marketing business, but I called the ad and I met this gentleman. Can't remember his name at this point in time, it was so long ago, but he taught me about the network distribution business. Even though at the time I was 16, about to turn 17 years old, I wasn't ready to be in this industry because you have to be 18 years of age. And so, I was always interested in what he did because he was a very sharp gentleman. So to fast forward a little bit, my background is in corporate America in sales. I was sitting at a Mercedes-Benz dealership and a good friend of mine, happened upon me because I sold him a car. That car was actually a $300,000 vehicle, okay? And he paid for it cash. I asked that gentleman, what do you do for a living? And he said, well, I'm in network distribution. He didn't tell me a company name or anything like that. I said, well, I've heard about it. I've always wanted to do it, but I've never really met somebody that I looked up to. And so I looked up to this gentleman, not just because of the money he spent, but the time freedom that I saw that he had and the posture that he had. And then it didn't hurt that he spent, $300,000 for a vehicle.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
I hooked my wagon to that gentleman, and here I am.
Gotcha. So what's your story before network marketing? Because you said you were introduced at 17, too young to come into the industry, if you will. So then you went on to sell cars. So
before selling cars, I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
When I graduated high school, I went through what we call the MESEP program. The MESEP program paid for you to go to college, and then after the MESEP program, you go into the Marine Corps. I was enlisted at first and became what we call a Mustang officer. So I spent 6 years in the Marines, and after getting out of the Marine Corps, I chose to take a path to the car business. But I didn't go straight into the car business. I went to a company that sold internet services, online internet services before, the online marketplace was cool. Not going to say the company's name, okay, but I did very well. It was a telemarketing company. We made phone calls to people and we sold internet services. I wasn't getting paid what I was worth though.
Okay.
I always thought that I should make a lot more money. I wanted to make in excess of $80,000 to $100,000 a year. I was 24 years old, actually 23 going on 24 years old at the time. And so when I left my job one day, I was going to the mall, okay, and I passed a Lexus dealership. I saw this gentleman, he was walking around a lot with an Armani suit on. He was clean, he looked like he made money. He was just a little older than I was. And so I stopped off at the Lexus dealership and I walked in the store. I talked to the general manager, he was there, and he walked me right next door to a Toyota dealership, and then I just excelled in the car business. My first year I made 70 grand, which was a lot of money for a 23, turn a 24-year-old. And so that was my journey. The car business, I was very successful in it. My last stint was at the Mercedes dealership right here in Atlanta, Georgia, where I was very successful. And I became a manager. And the story goes from there when I met the gentleman that I told you about, who is to this day one of my great mentors.
Gotcha. Okay, so for those who have been in network marketing before, we all know that getting started is a very rough path. It is definitely not a get-rich-overnight program. So when did you know that network marketing was for you, when you were like, this is it, like this is what I want to do?
Well, I can tell you, when I met that gentleman that I told you about at the dealership, he asked me one simple question. And that question was, Khatib, if you were to walk outside today, God forbid, and got hit by a car, how are you going to be able to take care of your family? That really hit hard, and I can rewind time for you. When my daughter was born, she had a 50-50 chance to live. We spent about 3 months in the hospital with her. Her name is Layla, which means beautiful, okay? And then her whole name is very powerful. I named her after my mother, my mother suffered an aneurysm and she lived to talk about it, which a lot of people don't live to talk about it. So I named her Layla Deborah Ritter, okay? And, we were in the hospital with her for 3 months, and I had to really be at the hospital with my child, 24/7, but I still had to maintain my current lifestyle. I still had to maintain the lifestyle. I still had to work 90 hours a week, so I was, back and forth to the dealership, to the hospital, back and forth. We were staying at the Ronald McDonald House at the time because that's where parents stay who has a child that's in the neonatal intensive care unit. And so while I was in there, I always thought like, man, what if it was me? And so when that gentleman asked me that simple question, it really hit home because of what I went through with my child. And so that's what really led me on a path of, if he's successful, right? And I know I can do it because I have belief. If he's successful and he's retired, because that gentleman was retired, he was pretty much done working. I told myself that I can do this too. I know it's not going to be easy because I was instructed it was not going to be easy. We've all fiddled around with network marketing companies before, but at the end of the day, I knew at this point in time, if I can do what I did in the car business, in network marketing, I can live a financially free lifestyle and retire myself and my family at a young age.
I think it goes without saying, in the car industry, that is one of the most competitive industries there is. So for you to go from there to here, it does make sense. So what advice do you have for us new distributors in the industry?
Well, I can tell you is the advice that I have for new distributors is not to quit. When you start a job, that you go through 2 weeks of training, right? Whenever you start any traditional business or job, which means just so we're broke, right? You do 2 weeks of training, and then you have an anniversary in your first year of business at your job. And then if you go 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, you have anniversary after anniversary after anniversary. But I will tell you, the advice that I give is not to quit, okay? To learn this industry like you learn your job, okay? To really treat it serious, not to treat it like a hobby, because most people treat a multi-million-dollar business like network marketing, as a hobby. It's already accumulated $167 billion annually, okay? It's made more millionaires in real estate. So what I would suggest is find yourself a mentor, okay? Hook your wagon to that mentor, somebody who's successful in this industry, and learn from them. It might be hard, it might be tough, it might not be the best person to learn from. But what I tell people all the time is the Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi story, right? Mr. Miyagi was a tough mentor. Daniel-san couldn't stand him. But at the end of the day, when he was at his last in that tournament, everything that Mr. Miyagi taught Daniel-san, right, ended up correct. And Daniel-san won the championship. So that's what I would tell anybody getting into this industry, to stick with it, to learn it, and to grab a right mentor and be on the right team, and then be with the right product, okay? And so that's what I would suggest if you do get into this industry.
And when I met Khatib, he actually told me he would mentor me and help me out, and I think being in the industry and not really having someone stable that's been successful, it's tough because there are things that you will never learn from reading a book that you would from having someone that you can, converse with and talk to and grow with. So I thank you for that. But also, last but not least, I know one of the big things that is crucial to network marketing is personal development. So what is your take on that?
Okay, well, I'll tell you, I had a great conversation with a very powerful man a long time ago. That man's name is Bill Farley. Bill Farley, owns Fruit of the Loom. He owns Christian Dior. He owns several big-time businesses. And one thing that Mr. Bill Farley told me when I asked him one simple question, I said, Mr. Farley, what did you do to become successful? He said, Khatib, I don't have a lot of time to talk about that right now because I'm at my daughter's wedding. He took the time to talk to me when he was at his daughter's wedding. But what he gave me was a solid golden nugget. He said, I read one book, and this one book changed my life, Khatib, and that book was called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He said, don't just read the book, but learn the book. Treat it like it's the Bible. you know, the Bible for business. You know, always put in place everything that you learn from that book, Think and Grow Rich. And ever since I started doing that, I just started accelerating in business. You know, so, you know, kudos to Mr. Farley because he really, you know, showed me something different about, you know, the books that I read. You know, so Think and Grow Rich, personal development wise, is one of the best books I can tell you about. And I tell you, in this industry, personal development is key. It is key. If you're not reading, you're not leading.
I agree. Well, that is all the time we have today with Mr. Ritter. I know he's a very, very busy man, so we appreciate you and we look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.